All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for coming. We'll just get started with today's programming topic, which is responsive layouts. But before we get started, we have some midterm projects that we wanted to present. So I think we'll start with Bora Lynn. Oh, yeah. So I think we just found some of these midterm projects as like maybe a little exceptional and wanted to just like display some student work. So yeah, I think we'll start with this. Oh gosh, let me drag this over. Yeah, did you want to come up and say a little something about maybe just like walk us through your process or like some design elements that you incorporated? Wait, let me just move this over. Oh yeah, or you can also just, yeah.
I guess I kind of just looked at Top Dog's website and kind of looked at like what I didn't like. I think there's a lot. For one thing, a lot of the text, there was just like a lot of content. It was very text heavy and there weren't a lot of images. And so I just placed a giant image for the main page and kind of like a motto. So like Top Dog since 1960, kind of like using the words. I tried to create like a color scheme. So red, light cream, and then blue. And then I also created the Top Dog logo just so, I don't know, I didn't really like the Top Dog logo. It kind of looked a little awkward. So this is the main page. And then if you scroll down, there are like images of the hot dogs. And then if you kind of scan over it, there's an overlay with like quotes that I found from the page. And then that's it for the main menu. And then on the menu page, I just also created like a separate menu paper, just because, again, there was a lot of text and everything was just like written. Then I also created a locations tab and then embedded like different links to each Top Dog website with like their information below, since a lot of their content was just like map, and then all the information was on the side. I also did a very simple order online page and then an art story page. I tried to utilize white space more just so you can focus on the text instead of like figuring out and kind of looking at the text really hurt my eyes. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much. We have a lot to get through, so I'm just gonna go through them really quickly. There were too many to choose from. Next one though, I think Rona. Is Rona here? You don't have to. You can just. You don't have to. Yeah. If you want to just talk from there. Okay. Let me pull it up. All good. Yep. So this is the. Oh, I think. Let me go to the. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I think aspect ratios are looking on a different screen.
I think so.
I think I just took like minimalism because I prefer that. And yeah, and I just took like hot dog colors to kind of make it cohesive and doing some fun things.
Okay. Thank you. That's pretty cool. Okay. Next, I think, was this Matthew? Oh, did you want to come up and talk? You can also do it from there. Okay.
So yeah, when I went on the Top Dog website, there was a sort of vibe I got, so I wanted to keep it. So kind of like take their design, just make it better. So like I kept kind of like the overall. I used the font they used, so it was like Georgia and Rossetti, which was a pain to find, but I found it. And so for the main page, I wanted like the options to be clear, and the menu add a little icon to like make it like just pop more. And yeah, keep a quote, but don't keep the text because well, maybe keep the text, but like down, because you want the focus of the reader when he arrives on the main page. Yeah, be more on this. And I also added a footer on every page who has like all the locations, the little Google Maps thingy for like the main location, contact info, because I see that on like lots of websites. I also get like their like paragraph they did, because yeah, it was great. And for the menu page, I was very minimalist with like their choice of menu, and when you hover it, like on their website, you can see a picture of the food on the side. I also did a couple of pages, so like the mail order, keeping the same color palette. So color palette was like yellow and red, but not very strong, because that's what you see on lots of fast food websites. I didn't do the catering, but I did the merch page. Yeah, and the cold dog, like if you want to make your own. Yes. And also I put a lot of effort, so I just want to mention it. I redid their logo like SVG so that it's not pixels. Very pixely.
Thank you very much. Let's see, who's next? I think. Oh, Gigi? Gigi, did you want to come up? No? Oh. Oh, this font?
No, yeah, that's not the right font that I use.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay, so this is a very ugly font. This wasn't the font that I chose, but I don't know why it didn't show up. It's probably my mistake. But how do you scroll? Is it on here? Yeah, but
Oh, it's
like, yeah, so you just like
go off of watching the slide.
and then
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Confusing. Okay. So yeah, I think like my biggest inspiration, I just like looked around a bunch of like fast food restaurant websites, and I feel like a lot of them have like this kind of bold title with like an image. And so like since the original homepage is very much like scattered, like I think just having like one focal point is very important. And so here, like as you scroll, you can go here to access the menu. This font is really bugging me. Anyways, you go down, and then why is this not okay? This is so sad. Okay, I don't know why it's not working, but this is supposed to be right there. But anyways, here are just like some of their popular items, and on hover you can see them. And then here, down here, oh my god, my Flexbox was not working. Anyways, imagine if this looks very in place, okay? And then I made like a little small illustration because I saw like, I was just looking at like some websites and they had like a small illustration, and I thought that was really cute. So then I went to 2 pages, which is the home and the menu page. So the menu page, basically like I think for me, like I prefer like looking at photos for menus instead of like reading text, and so I just like took all of their pictures and made like a small graphic for it. And yeah, that's it.
Let's see. Kylie, I think. Kylie? Sorry?
I used like margin instead of Flexbox, so I don't think anything's gonna be
Oh, that's okay. That's fine. We can just imagine it as centered. Yeah.
So,
It looks pretty centered to me.
if something's not centered, just imagine that it's centered. Wow, I'm intimidated because like everyone else has looked really good, and this is my first time doing anything like web design related or working with HTML and CSS. So looking at this page is like painful because I've stared at it so much. But this, how did you do the thing where you scroll? Go off.
Your cursor is on the screen.
Oh, okay.
So I made this like logo thing using their like original logo in Figma, and then I just like turned it into a picture. Honestly, looking at like the blank page of like things I was supposed to code in VS Code was really intimidating. So I started off with just like importing an image, and then I just worked around from there. And like, yeah, so scroll down. I kept the story, and then I did locations, and yeah, this is not where it's supposed to be, but that's fine. And then we have a menu, and it's also not where it's supposed to be, but like it hovers and does stuff. But yeah, so that's my web page. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, and lastly, I think is Katie, or is that right? Katie, Kate, sorry. Got it.
I also thought that there was too many words, so do it simple. I wanted like you to look at the world's best hot dog, but that might be an overstatement. But yeah, so hopefully your eyes drawn there, and then that's actually an image from I think their Instagram or something. So I still, but I thought it made their hot dogs look pretty good. So, and then maybe over to Top Dog, and then just like kind of a big nav bar like over here. I just thought it kind of like took a different approach to that. Is it going to go? No.
I don't know.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Or just that's just me holding it.
Oh, is this
Huh? It is cool. There we
Oh,
go.
there.
I don't know. I just don't know how to use the
Okay,
thing.
okay.
Yeah, and so then I just like the visual. I think that like the menus can be really like cluttered. So then when you hover, more information comes up. And since it's like against this backdrop, I just sort of grayed it out a little so that you could really read what it was. And I changed some of their names because I didn't like them. That's about it.
Thank you guys all for submitting your midterms. Yeah, we had a great time looking through. We will get those grades back shortly. All right, but we'll just continue. So let's see. Oh yeah, just some announcements. Lab 5 due March 20th, 7 p.m. as always. Hopefully you guys have seen the announcement, but homework 6 is optional. And please do the mid-semester survey. It's like very important for us to get the feedback so we can kind of adjust how we proceed with the rest of this semester. And yeah, so you'll get 2 extra credit points if you do that survey, so please do it. But yeah, no homework will be released this week, and there will be no lab next week. Basically what we're gonna do, I guess, yeah, it's not on here, but homework 7 will be assigned or released next week, and it will be on a topic that we teach also next week. So we're gonna extend the deadline to that so you guys have some time to like ask us questions, because throughout spring break we won't be like answering questions, or like we won't be attending to our emails. So we'll just give you a little extra time. And yeah, just keep in mind that you need 6 attendances, like 6 lecture attendances to pass this course. That is, even though it's like 1 point per lecture, it's like, that's like a mandatory category you need to fill. And yeah, so from here on out, there's only 5 more lectures. So depending on where you are, you might need to like show up to all of them. Yeah, sorry, did you have a question?
Do you know how many lectures there have been like up until this point?
This is lecture, I believe 7, is that right? 7, I think weeks, yeah, 7. Yeah. Yeah, and if you have any questions or concerns, just come to office hours and we can just walk you through or like answer any questions live. Okay, but yeah, going back to the title slide, today we're doing responsive layouts. Essentially, so last week we talked about Flexbox, or yeah, David taught Flexbox. That was a good intro to this idea of things or values not being like hard coded to certain like pixel values, but instead being like relatively formatted. And that'll be especially useful for the concept of responsive layouts, where you might not visit a web page from your laptop all the time with a very like wide aspect ratio. You might be viewing it on your phone with very different like dimensions and very different needs. And so we're going to talk about some strategies to code up a website that will kind of address this issue and hopefully like resolve anything that might cause like formatting issues from one device to another. So first we'll look at some strategies. We'll come back to this link actually. This will be a good way of like demonstrating the things we learn in the next few slides. Yeah, so the first approach we can take is by using percentages rather than hard pixel values. So you might have noticed as you were working on your midterms that when you write something like width is 300 pixels, that might look good on a very specific display, but as soon as you pull up that web page on your phone, all of a sudden text is like all over the place, things are expanded, everything is just upside down, right? By using percentage values, you're going to use, or you're essentially leveraging this like relative formatting so that no matter the width of the outer container, your inner container will always be spaced relative to its outer container's size. Yeah, so we've added a little note here that it only works to a certain extent, and we'll kind of see what that means. You might see a little bit of a hint of that in this picture where things are getting a little wonky despite the margins still looking kind of nice. Maybe we wouldn't want coffee shops or like this little chunk of text to be where it is, but again, something that could be resolved with another fix. Another strategy that we can use is the max width property. Essentially what you're doing is you're setting like an upper limit to how wide, as max width suggests, how wide a certain element can get, so that maybe you don't want your element to keep expanding. You don't want this 50% to just take over like too much. So you might set a hard-coded value of 500 pixels so that, I guess this diagram doesn't do a good job of showing that, but if you keep expanding, maybe your container stops at a certain point. Yeah. So that's good for setting boundaries. And yeah, nice for simple results. Here's like a problem you might encounter that we kind of saw earlier. Let's say when we compress or we slowly bring our width smaller and smaller, we see that our text is kind of getting smushed together. Maybe there's a way to break up the lines so that we start formatting our sections vertically rather than keeping them all in the same line. So one way to use that or to get around that is using the flex wrap property. And so yeah, depending on the width of the items, you might use this to wrap to the next line so that it doesn't just stay in the same line and instead yield something like this. So you can stack them vertically. And yeah, it's just good for like reducing how many items are in a single row, so that once you do get to a certain width, maybe they jump to the next row, and it just keeps things like spaced appropriately. So let's actually look at, so I'm going to go back to the slide. Let's kind of look at this in practice. Okay, so, all right, so, wait, why is this not? Hold on. Oh gosh. There should be some CSS here, but it's not showing up. All right, give me a second to figure this out. Okay, if I'm not able to do this right now, that's okay. That's fine. Kelly, could you look for where it should be? It was working earlier today. That's strange. All right, well, we'll just maybe return to that. Okay, but just one extra thing, the fourth strategy that we will talk about is something called media queries. This is a really cool feature in CSS where basically we can define like ranges for like pixel values for like maybe width or height, such that if our screen size is of a certain width, we have certain features or certain like styling. And then once it exceeds that or enters like a different range, maybe we want to style something or like somehow differently. So a really simple example of how this might be utilized in practice would be, let's say we define a certain range. So these are some like example pixel ranges, I guess, for like certain screen sizes for certain devices. Maybe we want a certain display for a website specific to like desktop, right? And then obviously mobile has very different needs and will be a lot less wide. So maybe we'll define certain styles for specifically mobile, and we'll leverage media queries to essentially like figure out which display should we be using right now. Yes, okay. And so moving on to that, a good visual example is here. So notice like this is the same website, just viewed on 2 different devices or with 2 different like layouts. Maybe this is your desktop version, maybe this is your mobile version. All the components are pretty much the same, right? All the content is same. It's just like how it's laid out, how it's presented, how it's accessed is all, you know, tailored to the needs of the specific screen, right? And so one way we can use, or the first thing you need to do to use media queries is to include this in your HTML head. You don't have to know what these are all saying or doing. It's just something to do, something you add into your HTML so that once you start editing things in CSS, it knows like what our initial values should be. So yeah, if you want to utilize media queries, just copy and paste this into your HTML. Okay, so notice we're dealing with a slightly different syntax than before. We have to use @media. So similar, yeah, to keyframe animations, which we saw in last lecture. The like @keyframes denoted a certain like CSS feature. In this case, @media is how we reference media queries. And if we continue to look at the syntax a little, we would set maybe like a max width value to 600 pixels. And essentially what this is saying is everything within this block, everything within this like surrounded by these 2 curly braces is how we want our web page to be styled when our width is no more than 600 pixels. Does that kind of make sense? So it's kind of like a net catching all the different screen sizes within 600 to like 0. And so maybe what this CSS file is trying to do is when our web page is wider than 600 pixels, then we'll have a font size of 16. And maybe once it gets smaller, we also want our text to scale similarly. So anything under 600 pixels will have a font size of 14. So that's how that might be used. And yeah, one other cool thing we can do is we're not just limited to a single one of those like if statements. We can also layer them. So essentially what we're doing is they're separate blocks, but from a logical standpoint, anything that is under 375 pixels is also under 600 pixels. So let's say our screen size or our screen is like 300 pixels wide. That means both of these styles will apply. But maybe if our screen size was 400 pixels wide, this no longer applies and it only takes on this styling. So it's kind of a way of like nesting different styling. That makes sense. Does anyone have any questions on this or is a little confused as to how we like reach that conclusion? Yeah.
So what is this scenario going to end up in? Specifically having to max with
Yeah, so let's look at 3 different cases. Let's say our width is 700 pixels, then neither of these will apply, right? If now we bring it down to like 599, so just under that 600, so like 500 maybe, then our font size will be 14 pixels, but notice this does not apply yet, right? Because it's still out of this range. We continue to make our screen less and less wide until maybe we hit like 300 pixels. I mean, it would activate at 374, but like, or maybe 375 inclusive, but let's just say 300. So now that satisfies both of these conditions. Then our text will be 14 pixels and red. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, so maybe this like logic here can get a little like hard to organize in your brain. And instead we want to define like more tangible and easier to read like ranges. One way we can do that is by leveraging or by using this and. So essentially what we're saying here is if we say like min width 200 pixels and max width 400 pixels, that means everything within those curly braces, everything that we've included in the block will only apply to when the screen size is between 200 and 400 pixels wide. So that might be a little easier to understand and easier to read than trying to decipher like, like mentally create each different case to see like how the web page will be styled. It's a lot easier if you just define, define like a clear range using and. Yeah, and so hopefully this demo works. So let me pull this one up, fingers crossed. Okay, all right. So just to walk you through what's happening here, am I able to? Okay, cool. So we have our HTML here. I'm actually not sure if I need to add the tag, but just as good practice, let's see what happens when I do. So let me really quickly copy and paste this. Shoot. So going back to, oh gosh, this. Okay, never mind. It's not gonna work. I'll just pull up this. All right, so we have some HTML here. We're just basically having or creating a simple nav bar, and we have some CSS to style it. And notice we have a tag here that styles it for desktop, and we also have one that includes styles for mobile. So maybe we'll use that. So right now, what's happening is both of them are currently displaying at the same time. Our desktop version of our navbar is this like long vertical row with home, about, and contact. And our mobile one might be compressed to like a little circle that when you click on will expand for your different options. Currently, because both of them are like active and they're both displaying, they're both kind of overlaid. So just really quickly, what I'm going to do is, first, within the nav mobile, I'm just going to say set display to none. Okay, so now that disappears. Display none is just a way of like making it disappear. So cool. We have essentially the width of like a desktop screen, and appropriately we have the desktop version of the navbar. Okay, but now we need to use media queries to somehow tell the program or tell the computer that once our screen reaches a certain width. Oh, sorry, I have to minimize this. Okay, so then, all right, oh gosh. Okay, here we go. So now, let's say I try to make it a little less wide. Notice this desktop version is still displaying, and that's maybe not what we want. So instead, maybe we want, actually, let's see. Maybe if the width is like under 700 pixels, we toggle the mobile navbar to pop up, so that little circle that we had earlier. So let's follow our convention. I think the solutions are down. Ooh, I won't write that. So let's bring it in. So we know that we have to start with @media. All right. And maybe we want the desktop version to pop up when it is no more than 700 pixels. Did I write that right? 700 pixels. Okay. Okay, so then within this block, what do I want to happen? Well, I want my nav mobile. Wait, let me think about that. Min width. Actually, maybe I'll do max width. So max width 700. And for nav mobile, I think that was the name of the tag. We're going to set maybe display to like block. Okay, so let's see what this does. So what do we think will happen when I shrink down to 700 pixels or below? Anyone have any guesses as to what might happen? I've essentially told the computer, whenever the screen is less than 700 pixels, I want the nav mobile to be displayed block rather than none. What would happen? I'll bring it like close. Oh, it even shows. So I'm at like 800 down to 700. Hopefully you guys have your guesses already, but oop, right there. So don't worry about how it like pops up to the side. That's just kind of like a feature of this website. But notice now, once it's shrunk under 700 pixels, our circle reappears. That was very intentional because we set this media query to display the nav mobile as block rather than none once that happens. Notice, I think we wouldn't want our desktop navbar to still display. So does anyone have any solution for that? We want our nav desktop to disappear once that happens. So yeah. Yeah, and what would we select for this? would it be mobile? So we already have mobile here, and we want that to appear.
That's not this.
Not desktop, correct? Okay. And we would do what with this? Display none. So notice it doesn't actually affect anything out here because our screen is what, maybe like 1,000, like 1,100 pixels wide. But as soon as we dip under that 700 pixel limit, now that navbar is gone and we're left with our mobile. So that's like one way we can see this in practice. And that's kind of how we code that into CSS. Anyone have any questions regarding this? Any like hypotheticals you might want to try out? Go
Is
ahead.
there like an infinite number of, like, I guess, containers or like the constraints you can have in this rule?
Yeah, actually, yes. So if you want to try it out for yourself, you could have like a setting for maybe 1,000 pixels and then a setting for like 990. You can be as like granular as you want, but typically you only need like 2 or 3 displays max. But there's no limit. Any other questions? I'll bring up the slides again. Yeah, it's basically just not there. So really easy way to make something disappear. If there are no other questions, then I will move this. Oh, yeah, go ahead. I think, actually, I haven't tried. Kelly, what do you think? Actually, it would probably just, it's as if it's just not there, huh? When you said display none, yeah. It wouldn't be like an empty placeholder, yeah. So for example, maybe if we go, I'm like trying to hover this element that was here, but its display is none, so it's just like not interacting at all. And similarly, so like we can see that hovering these has a certain effect, but once display is none for those, that no longer like works. So yeah.
We're talking about the HTML, like the code is still there, but you're just setting the display to none. So because of that one CSS styling, if you try to like inspect element, like on that, like if you right click and then inspect element, it won't show up as not like the computed part, but it'll still be in your HTML.
Yeah, but in terms of like user interactivity, it's like basically just not there. Any other questions? Oh yes, sorry.
So you have like a div who doesn't respect the shrink. So like it's gonna be this it's like yeah, it's more like imagine if like you remove the display none and you shrink it enough, it's gonna be wrong about the content.
Yeah, so are you saying maybe if we, like in here, we take out display none?
No. I mean like because if you're gonna shrink it and if we remove the display none, the about and are gonna be like in the column.
Oh, well, that would depend on how, like what display we set for the nav bar. Yeah, whether it was like inline block or something else. So that'll be dependent on other styling, yeah. So it might just stay in one row, or maybe you wrote, like if we use flex wrap, that might push it down into vertical. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, I think we'll move on to design then, which is here.